I love how Due Distance put it. This is a World War III bill. This is the bill that liberals are big sad that Mike Johnson arguably killed. They was willing to go so far right on the board. You know, the same level they used to call Trump a fascist. You gotta know the policy that separated Trump from the average Republican, according to Democrats, was the border policies. That is what did it. That is what tipped Trump over the edge. And so they are willing to concede to those policies, not to give you health care. They're not making a devil's bargain on the border in order to provide housing to people. No. It's to fund a World War III bill. That is what this is. Almost $5 billion going to the Indo-Pacific. Why the fuck we sending $5 billion over there? Fiscal conservative. Someone explain that to me. $10 billion. Look, and this is what I laughed about in my hotspot video. $14 billion to Israel to commit a genocide. $10 billion to get Gaza a sandwich after they get done being bombed. Here's $10 billion. Pat yourself up after we bomb you.
Exactly.
You got to sound counterproductive. Go ahead, Garland.
Yep. And, you know, right now, and I mean, there's just a pack of criminals. There's something I reported on, and I'll report on it again. There's a guy named Amos Hochstein. Amos Hochstein is the U.S. mediator right now for Israel. So Joe Biden brought him into the State Department. He's Biden's boy. They sent him over there. His job is to mediate this thing between Israel. Well, needless to say, he ain't doing too great a job. But here's the interesting thing about Amos Hochstein. Amos Hochstein worked for the Obama administration. He was like the assistant secretary for energy. The United States overthrew the government of Ukraine in 2014. Amos Hochstein quit his job and went to Ukraine and did the exact same thing that Hunter Biden did. Anybody can look it up. The state gas company for Ukraine is called Naftogaz. This man was working for the Obama State Department. He quits the State Department and goes and gets on the board of directors in Ukraine for Naftogaz, making a fortune. So he goes there, he makes a fortune, just like Hunter Biden. That's why they got to protect Hunter Biden, because they were all doing the same thing. Yeah. It was the same scam. So this guy sits there, cleans up, and then 1 month before Joe Biden gets elected, he quits Naftogaz, comes back and joins the Biden administration. Oh, by the way, do you know what Joe Biden, anybody can look this up. Look up Amos Hochstein, Nord Stream. He brought Amos Hochstein in, and his job, there's literally an article in there that says Amos Hochstein's job was to kill the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. He was the brains behind blowing up the damn pipeline. And now where is he? He's over in Israel, supposedly mediating this. Now think about this. I'll leave it with this. His whole thing is gas, international gas and pipelines and all that. That's his specialty, right? He goes to Ukraine. He gets on the gas board. What is it under Gaza that is gigantic? What is like 122 trillion cubic meters of gas has been discovered? And why do you think they sent Amos Hochstein over there, the gas guy, to mediate it? He's over there because they want to kill the Palestinians and steal their gas. There's gas there. They can't allow the Palestinians it's their land. It's their gas. They have a right to benefit from it. But that's Amos Hochstein's job right now. And a lot of people have realized that when it comes down to it, one of the reasons they want to take the stuff and everything from the Palestinians is because there's gas under that. You know, haven't they done that all over the Middle East? Blow up a country because they got oil and gas? The same thing's going for the Palestinians. And Amos Hochstein right now, he's at the the business end of getting that filthy work done.
I have seen countless segments talking about United States presence in Iraq and Syria and why United States troops are being attacked in the region. Not one of these segments ever mentioned the fact that the United States still 80% of Syrian oil production. As if these groups need Iran or any country to tell them to be upset about the United States. But I want to show you guys it, because this is what this bill really is. People calling it a border bill. Fuck y'all talking about? This is a World War III bill. And I'm still not from Due Distance. They're my boys. They're my homie at Due Distance. So taking that from them, it's a World War III bill. And I'm going to show you guys the meltdown corporate media is having, because allegedly, I think the vote's on Wednesday. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat. Mike Johnson is about to kill this bill because Trump don't want this bill to pass. Because electoral politics bullshit, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But Now listen to Democrats' reaction, because they don't care about anything else other than funding war, than funding empire. They're going to be allowed to say. Feel free to interrupt anytime, Garland, if you have something to say. I'm going to let it play because this is Michael Bennet. Remember, I think he ran in 2020 or was it 2016? It was one of those elections. And he was trying to pretend to be like an average Joe, but he was like he was trying to pretend that he was like I agree with Bernie on economics. Meanwhile, he was a fucking war hawk. He was just an unhinged war hawk. He trying to steal the aesthetic of a Ewing guy. And the reason I'm telling you guys this because I remember Bernie people like, yeah, that dude Michael Bennet, he's not that bad. I'm like, are you guys out of your goddamn mind? But anyway, let me play, and you guys will see why I say that. He was one of the people that was criticizing Bernie for speaking out against the Afghanistan war. To let you guys know who this guy is. But let's continue. Joining us now is let me turn it up. Volume was low for some reason. Here we go. Let's get started.
Michael Bennet, member of the Intelligence Committee. Senator, I think I was just going through the arguments that are made by all of the foreign policy people, bipartisan foreign policy people. I mean, Lindsey Graham.
Wait till you hear this, Garland.
What do you do for Ukraine?
We have to fund Ukraine. We cannot fail. It's not an option. The Ukrainian people have done more with their bravery over the last 2 years than anybody could have imagined. They took back.
For one, you guys already failed. Two, the only thing accomplished in Ukraine that you guys sacrificed an entire generation of people. But let's continue.
Back half the territory that Putin took from them. They were able to, without even a navy of their own, they were able to push Putin's navy out of the Black Sea, allow food to travel around the world. And their fight has not been a fight just for Ukraine. It's literally been a fight for democracy. It's been a fight for NATO. It's been a fight for U.S.'s national security. They have been engaged in, I would say, the most successful proxy war in history. And
proxy war?
I can't. And this is
proxy
they actually
war.
say it now, Garland. They actually say it now. They actually admit. Because for a long time they was pretending, no, we're not doing.
They would say you were a Putin puppet. They actually attacked people of being Putin supporters for saying that it was a proxy war. Everybody knows it's a proxy war. But here's the thing: why is our national interest on Russia's border? Our national interest is Taiwan on China's border. But China and Russia's national interest isn't in Canada. It's not in Mexico. Our national interest is in the Black Sea, the Sea of the China, South China Sea. It's these people believe that the United States, it's the people should look up the Wolfowitz doctrine. They just believe that we should run the world for all eternity and nobody has a right to say anything else. You know, one other thing I'll add. Tucker Carlson mentioned the prosperity of the West, right? Of the West prosperity, because in 45, we've had a system where the West was prosperous. He didn't mention that it was at the expense of the global South, that the West was prosperous in the same way that if you go to your ATM machine and withdraw $100 and I stick a gun in your back and steal that $100, I can say I'm prosperous and you're not.
Yeah. But
I stole your money. That's the kind of prosperity that we got, was from stealing, murdering, marauding, and acting like pirates all throughout the global South. And then, you know, Tucker Carlson didn't get into that. I don't know if he believes it or not, but it is factual.
This is where I want to play this part again, where he called it the most successful proxy war ever. You know, where hundreds of thousands, entire generation of Ukrainian men. Job well done. They're all dead. Job well done. They don't give a fuck about Ukrainians. It's crazy. And Michael Bennet is hilarious because he's like a neocon frat bro, a warmongering surfer. That's what he sounds like when he speaks. Come on, bro. Let's arm Nazis in Ukraine, bro. That's Michael Bennet.
Because we don't need any money for here, man. It's not like we need money at home. These people have completely lost touch with the United States. They are now protecting the empire. They are, you know, people, if anybody wondered what it would be like if the neocons came to full power, now they know. They're just fascists. They don't care about the United States. They don't care about our people. They don't care about our infrastructure, none of that. They're just now feeding money into the weapons manufacturers and repeating the lies. They know Ukraine has already lost the war. If they don't know, it's because they don't care. They're pushing the narrative. This is what they're told. If the narrative tomorrow changes to the war's over, Ukraine won, they'll say the war's over, Ukraine won. It doesn't matter to them if it's true or false.
What's that? Let's continue to get even more unhinged. I just want to play this part again because it's forever. They will label you a Putin puppet, as you said, if you said exactly what he says right here about us engaging in proxy war against Russia.
Their fight has not been a fight just for Ukraine. It's literally been a fight for democracy. It's been a fight for NATO. It's been a fight for U.S.'s national security. They have been engaged in, I would say, the most successful proxy war in history. And for the United States to turn our back on them now would be catastrophic for our national security and catastrophic for people all over this planet that hope to live in free societies.
It's catastrophic.
Go ahead, Garland. I know there's a lot down there. Go ahead.
Here's the first thing I think. It's catastrophic to stop a war, right? If we stop a war, it'll be catastrophic. The only responsible thing to do is continue a war with a nuclear superpower. Stopping a war with a nuclear superpower is catastrophic. Imagine that kind of logic.
We are fighting for democracy, Garland. You know the country that made it illegal for workers to collectively bargain? That democracy. You know the democracy that banned opposition parties? Except the fascist one? That democracy. The democracy that banned opposition media. That democracy. That's the democracy that Michael Bennet claims we are fighting for in Ukraine. Liberals have been brainwashed by corporate media to the point where they really believe this. It's unbelievable. I'll let it continue because they are just getting started. I
want to add one other thing about the democracy.
Go ahead.
And we're supposed to believe that Ukraine wants to take back all of Donbass and eastern Ukraine, where all the Russian-speaking people are, and they want to take back Crimea. So that's somewhere around 10 million people, right? We're supposed to believe that Ukraine wants to bring these people back into Ukraine, but they speak Russian. We're supposed to believe that Ukraine's going to bring back in 10 million people where it's illegal, literally illegal to speak their own language. Oh, and it's a democracy, right? So if you bring 10 million people back into Ukraine, right now they're estimating about 25 million people, right? You bring 10 million people back in that are all pro-Russian. They're going to vote as a bloc, and they're going to vote in a pro-Russian government, aren't they? So we're supposed to believe that Ukraine's going to bring these 10 million people back and let them vote, and they're going to vote in a pro-Russian government. It makes no sense.
No sense at all. They don't expect you to think, though. They don't expect you to think. And this is the point I make at Nick CJ earlier this week. You notice how Michael Bennet mentioned that we can't turn our back on Ukraine. We can't break our promises. Sir, they are not an ally. They are not NATO. We have no obligation to them. And notice how they want politicians to keep their promises to war, but politicians turn their back on the American people. Not a big deal. So I am to the left of a public option. I think we need to nationalize healthcare, but Joe Biden ran on a public option. Where's Michael Bennet saying we can't turn our back on the American people this way? You can't betray the promises you made to the American people. Didn't you say you was going to increase the minimum wage, Joe Biden? Why are you turning your back on the American people? You notice they never say that. It's only you turning your back against war, Joe Biden.
Student loans? How about that? Did they say, did Michael Bennet, is he saying we can't turn our back on students? We promised them that we would forgive student loans, and I could care less. In fact, you could take this money and forgive student loans. You're not going to do it. Can we turn our back? But remember this, if you vote for Joe Biden in Georgia, 2,000 coming. You could argue that that's kind of like buying votes. But anyway, notwithstanding that argument, you said that. And then as soon as people voted for him, they're like, yeah, well, we said 2,000. What we meant was you already got like 1,400. So we'll give you 600 and it'll all equal. Did they say we turned our back on them? That's not what we told them. No, because they don't care about us. In fact, I put it like this. If that's their idea of not turning their back on Ukraine by throwing them into a meat grinder, I'm happy for them to turn their back on me. Please turn your back on me, because I don't want to be thrown into a meat grinder.
So Congress has a 17% approval rating. People hate United States politicians because they don't follow through on their promises. I promise you those numbers will flip if they had the opposite mindset where they decide they're going to break promises on war. Break all the promises on the war you want, fam. Break promises on war, keep your promises to us, and we all gravy. But that's not what happened. But let's let it continue. We got maybe another 10, 15 minutes, and then we wrap. I don't want to take too much of your time. tonight, Garland. So we wrap up here in another 10, 15 minutes. But let's let it continue here.
And for the United States to turn our back on them now would be catastrophic for our national security and catastrophic for people all over this planet that hope to live in free societies.
It just strikes me that the switch from Mitch McConnell, I mean, from inside the Republican Senate, hard to fathom what could have happened in the last 24 hours.
Bro, she talks like I talk, and I took a lot of fucking shots to the head in my life. Like, how is she on court with me? I know that had nothing to do with politics, but every time I see her, I'm astounded. I grew up with speech impediment. I took thousands of punches to the head. I talk like this for a reason. Why the hell you talk like this? Anyway, sorry, I'll let it continue. That's not that was just me joking on. Hey, let's continue.
Other than Donald Trump exerting his pressure and a new speaker of the House who yielded to that.
It's unthinkable to them.
The way for the Senate.
Go ahead, Garland, if you want to chime in.
It's unthinkable to them. How could this be that the Congress could not spend hundreds of billions of dollars on war? I mean, she looks almost like she's in pain. She's emotionally torn. Oh God, how could this happen? Like she's lost some kind of a relative. This is unthinkable. It has to be Trump. Because it could be nothing else but Trump. Everything that happens, of course, is always Trump. But look at the pain. Do you see her doing this over the homeless people? The people that are dying of easily curable diseases because they don't have health care? She could give a crap about them. But God forbid that people have to suffer around the world by not having this war with a nuclear superpower.
Well said. Well said, Garland. Let's continue. I'm just cracking up, man. Like she's a professional news person. She sounds like me when I'm stoned on the stream sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And a new Speaker of the House who yielded to that, leading the way for the Senate to defer to the House is so unusual on a foreign policy issue of this magnitude.
Well, it's staggering. I mean, I do believe that Mitch McConnell wants to fund Ukraine, but we'll see whether that's true or not.
That's the number one thing they care about.
Who looks at this and says, "Oh, this was just the Senate Republicans capitulating to the House," is missing the real point, which is what you're talking about, Andrea, which is this is Donald Trump exerting his thumb, putting it on top of people that had negotiated a bipartisan deal that, as you pointed out, was a
so Garland, their strategy this election is to paint Ukraine funding being blocked on Donald Trump.
They must be working for his campaign. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Donald Trump won't fund a war. People are going to be like, oh, you know what? I wasn't going to vote for Trump, but now that he won't fund a war, hey, you'll be seeing people running all through the black community with red hats on. If they find out, they're literally, the only good thing about this is it's on MSNBC, so nobody's going to see it anyway. Who the hell watches that anymore? Look at their numbers. You got more people watching right now on RBN than is going to see that video in the life that it stays up on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you know who's watching it? People like us. The only reason it gets any views is because people like us will play these videos to like humiliate these people and talk about how horrible they are. Nobody's like watching it saying, boy, I need to get some accurate information. Let me turn on MSNBC. That ain't happening.
I think the professional managerial class watch it because this is how they train each other in propaganda. Like they're like, this is how this is how we speak on the war. This is the narrative that we want to spread on this. It's narrative control. So they know how to talk to their friends about this. This is the liberal suburban wine moms. And the reason why we do propaganda report on RBN is because when you watch these shows, it's literally seeing the mind of the government. You can see exactly what the government thinks. When you watch Morning Joe, that's straight up state media. So when you see exactly what they say on CNN, on MSNBC, might as well be a press conference. You know exactly where the enemy is coming from, and you see how important funding war for them is. Like, to me, it's crazy that people won't see this segment and not become immediately radicalized, because the first thing I think about is the urgency they show for Ukraine is the urgency I show for the working class. Like, it's the same sense of betrayal that Michael Bennet felt for another country across the fucking Atlantic Ocean. It's the sense of betrayal I feel every time a politician betrays the working class. But whenever the politician betrays the working class, I'll just get over it. Oh, this campaign promises wasn't kept. But anyway, let's continue. We wrap up here soon, but I just want to play just a little bit more of this, and we can.
Sure. Deal. I would say a deal that is needed because the border of the United States is overrun. We're seeing the effects of that in Denver. We're seeing the effects of that in Colorado. But the Republican Party, who are consumed in the House with impeaching Mayorkas without any evidence of any kind that of an impeachable offense, in my view, have now impeached themselves again on the issue of immigration. This
I can't believe anyone take. How did the guy become a politician? A lot of people say Nikki should run. Like, no, I'm not the guy, guys. I'm not. I'm not a politician. You know what I mean? There's a skill set. This guy is a surfer bro, man.